Welcome to Intergenerational Conversations, where hosts Keona, Owens, and Josephine Robinson bridge the generational gap in the nonprofit world. Each episode dives deep into topics that bring diverse ages togetherness, sparking innovation, understanding, and collaboration. Through engaging interviews and dynamic discussions, Intergenerational Conversation explores how different generations contribute their unique perspectives to shape stronger, more inclusive nonprofit communities. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your journey, join us as we uncover the power of conversations, shared experiences, and collective wisdom across the age. Hey, welcome, good evening. Welcome to Intergenerational Conversations. Today, we have two amazing guest speakers. I have Stephen here with me and also Bevon here. We're really going to dive into, it's ironic that today's conversation is embracing diversity and inclusion. So before we even dive into this, I want to ask my co-host Josephine, why do you think this conversation is important in today's nonprofit landscape?
I think it's really important because generally in nonprofits we work with sometimes marginalized communities a lot. Mm-hmm. And if we're not deliberate and making sure that we have everybody included, both the workers and the board and the C-suites, where diversity is important, we will miss out on making those things happen. And I think sometimes that happens, and like it does in corporate America, it happens in nonprofits as well.
She's always dropping the gems. So, we're actually going to dive into today's conversation. So I'm going to start off by asking Bevon. Mm-hmm. So, Bevon, you bring a lot of wealth into today's conversation. You actually work in fintech. So my question to you as a consultant, what are some key challenges you've observed when it comes to diversity across different generations within the nonprofit sectors?
I think going back to what you said, I believe in collaborative impact. Mm-hmm. I think I work with a lot of young people, high school, college, young professionals, and I encourage them to connect. Yeah. So I'm a strong believer in relationships, social capital, and then when you have cross-generational conversations happening, young people have a lot of ideas, and they often feel like they're not heard.
Yeah.
Right? So I like to let them lead. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing an event, I'm doing a program, like, hey, what ideas you have? Even simple things like designing stuff, a t-shirt, a fly, whatever it is, once they feel like they have some skin in the game, then they feel they have ownership of it, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in a lot of nonprofit spaces, I don't see enough of that happening. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Young people bring the innovation, right? You gotta let them innovate, let them make their mistakes, but be there to guide them, mentor them. So I've had a lot of success with young people because I kind of put them to the front.
Yeah.
I'll be the connector, the facilitator, but when you let them lead and let them have a voice and be seen and be heard, magic happens when you let that happen.
Absolutely. So this is a great segue of him to introduce himself. So who are you?
So Bevon, I've been in Chicago for about 15 years, moved here from New York, but my career started on Wall Street in New York. So I worked at stock exchanges, banks, hedge funds, and 10 years ago I made a complete switch to start a nonprofit organization. And the whole point there was to introduce Black and Latinx kids to careers in finance. I did that because through my own lived experience working on Wall Street, I was on trading floors. I didn't see anybody who looked like me, spoke like me. I suffered from imposter syndrome for like a good 10 years because I just felt I didn't belong there. After a while, kind of spoke up, made some friends, got some mentors, started learning about trading and stuff like that. And then I said, you know what, I got to do something to open the door for more students of color to get in there. And I'm a strong believer in kids can't be what they can't see.
Right.
And there's so many amazing careers that you can start building generational wealth on, like investment banking, asset management, and finance. So transitioned to like the nonprofit social impact space 10 years ago. We worked with hundreds of kids, got hundreds of them as mentees working in finance today, making six figures and stuff like that. But yeah, everything I do there's a theme of financial literacy, career access, and exposure for young people.
Great. Amazing.
Excellent. Right. Yeah, I think what's important is that, and he didn't share, he said he starts as young as kindergarten, and it goes through young professionals. So I think there are different stages, and sometimes people get into situations that they don't know what to do, and then they make mistakes because they don't have anybody. And so the fact that you stay with them and you have them, you shared earlier that you have gotten it because you're tech savvy. You've got a network so they can start talking to each other. Because I think it's so important that young people can use technology for us not to be afraid of it. And sometimes us older people, us baby boomers are a little, because we don't know about it. And so we've got to be deliberate. And I think the fact that you're being innovative in that approach, and that the fact that young people are making six figures is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. We love that.
You say you love it?
We love that.
We love coins.
Yes.
All right, so through this episode, we'll explore key challenges, opportunities, and practical strategies to foster inclusion environments. So I'm glad we did the introduction with Bevon. Now we're going to pivot to Stephen.
Correct.
Awesome. So Stephen, in your experience, what are some common generational misunderstandings when it comes to embracing diversity in the workforce?
Oh, Keona, that question is so loaded. There's so many. Well, first of all, thank you, Ms. Josephine, for having me.
Okay.
We are very appreciative of being here. But the four that come to mind, communication, technology, I think how we view inclusion, and cultural sensitivity. I'm going to touch on two that I see the most common, and that's technology and communication. Ms. Josephine spoke about baby boomers or our more seasoned workforce personnel who are resistant to technology. And then you have millennials like me who have just been immersed in technology since we got here. And so I'm often finding myself bridging that gap because I have an older grandmother, of course. I have aunties and people who I've programming TVs for, or phones, or how the Facebook and all those things, right? And so I understand how that works, and even how we approach the work, right? Baby boomers or more seasoned professionals prefer in-office meetings, face-to-face conversations.
Yes.
Meanwhile, like, send me an email. That could have been an email. You could have Teams messaged me. Then we have to really talk about those things. So I think communication is one of the biggest things in how we leverage technology. And also work-life balance. Work-life balance. We had a conversation earlier before the show started, and you was like, boomers, we going to work until we can't work anymore. Absolutely. We can all agree that that's the case. And your work style, right? 40 hours a week in office. You stayed for the benefits, right? It gave you benefits, gave you security. And meanwhile, the millennial was like, well, if I could just make enough to travel monthly, I'm okay. Do I really need dental? Do I really need, right, a 401k and all of those things? And so the good jobs or the good benefits that attracted younger or more vibrant workforces back then is not the same today. So I think those are the two biggest disconnects.
All right.
That's
So who are you?
Thank you. Thank you. I am Stephen Hale. I am currently a doctoral student at Governor State University, where I'm pursuing my Doctor of Education. I have 10 years of nonprofit experience, and I recently just switched over to the healthcare field full-time. I'm doing federal contracts. I've done HR, diversity, equity, inclusion work, case management, social work, all of those things. So that's my background. And I'm happy to share this space with you, my brother.
Amazing.
Very good. I think the point of in terms of and many of us we don't want to stay in a 40-hour work week. So I want that to
clarity.
Be clear. Let's be clear with that. I'm retired technically. But I want the flexibility. And I think what's exciting, and I was sharing, is that we saw our parents doing physical labor. And many, and because we are the real first full generation that benefited from civil rights and that people can't legally discriminate, and we were able to go to college and do all that kind of. So I think the reality is that wow, you still have the physical energy to do. And I remember my dad, my uncles, many of them worked at the steel mill, or they worked for Ford, or they did hard labor. So when they got finished, they wanted to not do anything. And I think because we've been fortunate, and I think that's the balance, and that's why we need to share our knowledge and also be receptive, because when you said my phone, and when I have problems, I have a daughter who's a native and it's just Mom. And I'll ask questions. She said, "Well, why didn't you just look it up on Google?" And,
I got you. That's what you're here for. But,
all right.
What I heard you say is choice, right?
Right.
Your generation got the first opportunity to make a choice.
Yes.
You can choose to do this or choose to do that.
Right.
It's power in choice.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
All right. So I really want to ask Bevon a question. What are the biggest obstacles nonprofit face when trying to create a truly inclusive culture across generations?
So when I started my nonprofit, I had no nonprofit experience.
Wow.
I was bringing the Wall Street mindset to a business. It was a nonprofit, and I only chose a 501c3 because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, because I had never done it before. But I reached out to folks who I knew had family foundations, say, what is this nonprofit? How do I start? But what I've learned over the last decade is that there's structural things that they've done the same way for a long time. And when young people are involved, because most of them are young people serving organizations, but like I was saying before, the young people don't feel like they have a voice in the mission or the vision, right? And there's just a way to do it. I'm sure you've seen this in your experience. Like if a nonprofit is looking to be more, right, exchange information between different generations, there's frameworks to do that.
Yeah.
Right? That might be an outside consultant, that might be, right, different. There's a lot of material on this these days with AI, but I just feel like the way nonprofits have operated for a long time, and I'm saying this again based on my own experience, I will never start another nonprofit because I realized that if you want to make change in the world, there's other ways to do that as well.
Yes.
Nonprofits have a place, but I feel like a lot of them are very legacy. In the
Now we're
way
talking.
technology, the way they do things. A lot of nonprofits raise money and give it away. And the way I looked at it, I was running a business to serve young people and do good in the world and have an impact. But I was working with a lot of corporations from the financial services space who speak the business language of business. All right, so as a nonprofit organization, you need to understand the language of business as well.
Agreed.
Right, because the ROI for them and you might differ a little bit, but there's a way to have those conversations when you're in those rooms and you're talking about serving young people. You got to meet them where they are, speak their language, right, make them feel like they have a voice in the conversation. So biggest challenge I've seen is sometimes a lack of willingness to change. And today in 2025, with technology, AI, and all that stuff, change is happening really quickly. And I'm very focused these days on making sure that a lot of nonprofits in Chicago and other places aren't left behind in the age of AI, and young people know that stuff, faster than the folks who are running the organization.
Can I piggyback on
Absolutely.
one thing you said that just really it touched me right here?
Okay.
In my nonprofit experience, do you know what was one of the most frustrating statements to hear? Well, we've always done it like that. Baby, that's why we're not growing. That's why we're not getting nowhere.
That's
So
right.
I think you're correct. It's understanding that things are changing rapidly,
Yes.
and that you have what you need to be competitive in-house. And it's about how you capitalize it and really use the talent that you have and respect them in the space as the subject matter expert or someone who is capable of taking you to the next level.
Yeah. Scaling. I'm sorry. This is I'm going to actually drop this gem. We're actually hosting our nonprofit community information forum on
Wednesday,
February the 5th from 10:30 to 12:30, and the topic for that discussion is scaling solutions for nonprofits. So that's why I'm
Repeat it. They missed it. Repeat it.
scaling solutions. On that platform, we have our moderator, which is Perry Gunn. He is a dynamite. He's been working in the nonprofit space for how many years?
Long time.
Long time. And our panel is Michelle from Imagine Inglewood If, Jennifer from Future Ties, and Jarima from Burst Into Books. So if you guys want to be there, we actually have a virtual space as well, but it is in person at the Kelly Library. So I had to plug that in. That was a plug.
And I think the reality is that it's to balance it off. Because I know, one of the things, it's a good thing that unfortunately that happened with COVID, because I didn't realize Zoom has been around forever. And my nephew, who actually played football at a university, he told my sister, he said, well, our coaches use Zoom all the time, and he graduated in the mid-2000s. But for many of us, we only got introduced to Zoom because of COVID. And so those, and now and so I'd rather have an in-person. But having virtual is another opportunity to have people from all over, you know, and you don't have, we had a class with one of my nonprofits that I started, and the gentleman, we had people from all over the country in this workshop, so you can't do that. So the balance, and I think that's, but you're right, I prefer a phone call rather than a text. And I know some people don't like to talk on the phone. And some people don't. One of my friends, they don't respond to phone calls. So you got to be flexible enough. And I think that's the important thing. And I think we all got to learn how to give and take.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I want to ask Stephen another question. How do you think factors like race, gender, socioeconomic background intersect with generational differences in a nonprofit organization?
So I'm interested to see how my friend feels about this, because I feel like we all approach this from a different way.
Yeah.
We all have different socioeconomic standards and backgrounds, right? So people from more affluent backgrounds don't understand the privilege of being a CEO, or being the privilege of walking onto a board of directors, or having that privilege of walking in and everyone respecting you because of your legacy, your father, or whomever that we don't have that type of nepotism. We don't have that type of privilege often. And so I think when we come into these spaces, we're always constantly proving ourselves. I have to prove that I have to be here. I have to prove that even though I'm young, I'm able to be a director, because they won't let me be CEO. So let me really overperform in this director role. Next thing I know, I'm getting pigeonholed in this director role because you do this really, really well. And we struggle to find somebody who wants to stay in this role at this salary cap for this long. I think also the culture is shifting around the United States, around work, around gender roles. It's so many different conversations that are happening. Most nonprofits have to remain nonpartisan. They have to remain neutral. And sometimes neutrality means that you don't, it means that you don't get to pick a side. And so whoever the loudest voice is, you may have to be in concert with them, even if it goes against like the essence or the root of who you and your organization are. So I think those are two of the biggest things I see: lack of confidence or privilege, and then the changing culture. And how do you say, what do we give and what do we take? And what's the return on investment of that give and take?
So what do you think about that?
I wasn't thinking about this until you said this, but in today's America, in the nonprofit space, yes, you have, as 501c3, you got to stay neutral, right? But your donors probably aren't neutral. Corporations that are like pulling back on DEI now, right? They're not going to give to certain organizations or missions anymore. So again, back to my point of innovation, you got to find different ways to pretty much survive, stay afloat as a nonprofit. A lot of nonprofits don't monetize the things that they do well. They should, right? That's okay to do as long as it's tied to your mission. But to your point, yes, I think I've been in a lot of conversations with foundations, corporations, funders who they might want to write a big check, but there's all the strings that be attached to that. Or when you enter that room and you look around, you're the youngest person there, and your ideas seem very different than everything else they've been funding, everything else they want to do. They don't believe in trust-based funding. They want to it's all program, and you can't grow your staff. It doesn't make any sense. So I think again, going back, I keep saying the language of business, because you have to find a way in those conversations to get them to move along in the direction you want them to move, right?
And I think the other point, and I had a flashback from my graduate course, it's about integrity. And it's so important. And in nonprofits, you have to, and sometimes you have to make some decisions if you cannot get with the program, that you need to move on. Because a lot of times, some nonprofits, they do it a certain way, and it goes against what your creed, and it doesn't synchronize with your deed. So what they say and what they do might be different. And I think it's really important to give, and I think people that have been around who are activists, we don't like to use that word too much, but people that have stayed true to what their calling is and not compromise.
Come on.
And not follow the dollars, because that's what happens a lot in nonprofit world. You got and I think and some people have been able to be creative enough and do it, but you got to be willing. And I think there are lots of baby boomers, and they have stayed small, or they've not necessarily, and you can have money, but they've made a decision not to do, and they're not going to compromise. And so they stand on their principles. And a lot of times, people, some people say, if you got board members or you've got a CEO, and you find out that, and I think a lot of people are doing nonprofit work in a different kind of way, because they do want to have a voice and they do want to be able to speak their mind. But if you do have a nonprofit status, a friend of mine said, don't you know that technically the government owns your company? And if you don't do right, they can pull. And they don't give you that nonprofit tax exempt status for anything, or for nothing. So I think people being creative, and I know there are a lot of social entrepreneurs that are doing things different, and I don't know all the different terms, but a lot of people are doing things differently and not traditionally under 501c3s, because you are limited.
Wow.
Gems.
Gems. All right. So we're actually we have 5 minutes. When you be in the midst of the conversation, time escapes. So I actually want to ask Bevon a question. How can nonprofit leverage mentorship programs to promote intergenerational learning and respect?
Yeah, you're talking about our good friend, Mr. David Cherry. He's been a long-time mentor of mine. When I was starting my nonprofit, again, I just went to folks who I saw doing it, or I met them, and I was very intentional. I was like, hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I'm even to today, I'm not shy to say I don't know what I'm doing or ask for help. Because, again, I really believe in the power of relationships.
Yes.
Your network is your net worth. Like, it literally comes down to that. I tell entrepreneurs, founders, like, if you're starting a business, raise relationship capital first. Right? So I find mentors, I have mentors still today. I'm meeting people all the time. I'm a mentor to a lot of young people. So it's super, super important for somebody to help you reduce the runway to like success or wherever you want to get to. I spent 10 years trying to figure it out on my own. And I started a nonprofit to help kids shorten that to like weeks.
Powerful.
Right? So you want to have a ripple effect when it comes to like impact. Right? So I think a mentor does that. Right? If there's something happening in the city that I'm trying to do, I'm coming to her, I'm coming to David, and said, I'm thinking about this, what do you guys think? Their perspective is super valuable. And there's no reason to try to reinvent the wheel.
And experience. You can't buy experience, right?
And people are willing, and one of the things I think on both sides, because I know people will say, well, young people won't listen, but I think you've got to be able to come in a correct manner, because a lot of times older people, we can be very well, you got to do it this way, and if you don't do it this way, it's no other way. But you got to be able
talk to me, don't talk at me.
Perfect. And developing mentors is so important. And you can have mentors that they don't know that you're your mentor.
Right.
Because with YouTube and all the technology, I've got mentors that I've never met and will never meet.
And that's the approach I take, right? Okay. So my point is reverse mentoring. I do that all the time.
Okay.
Oh, this is my auntie at my job. I'm going to take her under my wing. She don't even know that I'm mentoring her to be what I need her to be for me.
Okay.
But I think nonprofits especially need to focus on succession planning.
Yes.
Right? You see the exit for yourself in the next 5 to 10 years. You need to start training that person in 5 to 10 years now. Give them that carrot. Keep them motivated. Keep them encouraged. Let them know. Because millennials, you got 2-3 years, and we looking around. We looking around for the next opportunity.
That's right.
But if I feel motivated, if I feel like I'm a part of the conversation, I'm integrated into the system and culture, I'm more likely to stay.
Excellent.
We actually, one of our conversations is what you just said,
succession
planning. So I have a question for both of you guys, because we are running out of time. And please make this quick. Answer it quickly, please. For young professionals entering into the nonprofit world, what advice would you give to help them navigate generational differences with confidence and respect? I understand I love mentorship. The whole dynamics of that is social capital. Like, I am a big advocate of gleaning under your lead, finding the right person. As you all know, my community mother is Miss Josephine Robinson. And when she pours, she pours. So finding the right community is important. But what advice would you give young professionals looking into getting into the nonprofit sector?
Go in and find common ground, right? Don't go in defensive. Don't go in being the big shot, the person calling. First, come, observe the culture, learn the culture, and then, like my good brother here said, build relationship capital. People have to see you in a position before they see you in a position. Oh, Josephine can be CEO, and then they put you in that space to be CEO, right? So I think, build relationship and find common ground.
That's good.
Yeah, I think empathy and being authentic, but also focus on collaboration. Right? The more you come in like, hey, how can we do this together? Or this organization over here is doing similar thing, we could collaborate on that. Just always be that person who's trying to collaborate, because the more you can bring more people to your ecosystem and move them in the right direction, we're always better together.
Amazing. So I have a whole bunch, a lot of questions, but a whole bunch, a lot. But unfortunately, we are running out of time. So to our listeners, we encourage you to take what you've learned today and apply it to your life, your workplace, your community. Let's continue this conversation and work together towards a more inclusive future. Now, thank you for allowing us in your space, your living room, wherever you are. We want to invite you back into this space on February the 24th at 7 p.m. We will be live talking about building multi-generational teams, advantages on assembling diverse teams, strategies for maximizing generational strengths, and overcoming conflict to promote synergy. So I want to thank our guests today. I appreciate you guys for your yes. This conversation was amazing. And one word, and then we're going to exit.
Revitalize. I feel revitalized about my commitment.
Yes. Empowered.
Yeah. Yep. And it's relationship. I like relationship capital. Authenticity, collaboration, communication. So all of those words are very important. And I think we've had a good discussion to start and look at other ways that you can work in the nonprofit, but not in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you again. If you want to join us in person, we will be having another dialogue on February the 5th for Nonprofit Scaling Solutions. Did I say that right? Yes, I did.
Okay.
But again, we'll meet you again at the same time, same place on February the 24th at 7 p.m. Thank you so much for having us in your home.
Just a little plug. Don't forget to celebrate Black History. February.
Every day.
Everywhere.
Every day, all the time.
Every day.
We're excited about February.
Yes.
All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you.